So welcome to this crash course on how to program real-time LabView. It's a little tutorial. First part here, how to program FPGA. For more information, you can. I'm going quickly, but you can just pause this video and look at these links here, which you can access. Here's a list of the necessary software. Essentially, in this video, we're going to be working with MATLAB, LabView, and the NI Simulation Interface Toolkit. Those are the three main components. All of them are version 2009. MATLAB has to be 2009A. B will not work for this. And then we have Microsoft Visual Studio.net and NI Measurement and Automation, which also have to be included in there, as well as some components for LabView, which need to be there in order to be able to interface our hardware. Alright, so speaking of our hardware, the hardware that we're going to be using is an NI7852R FPGA and an NI-SCB68 connector block. So that's where the connections are made. So let's get started, shall we? So we start off at this folder. If you have everything set up correctly, then you'll go to this folder. You can just pause and see the address. And we're going to attack this file right here, SIT-FPGA-IO. It's a LabView project. We're gonna double click it and open it. So here we see the project layout, and essentially this is where we're gonna program our FPGA. We can see at the beginning, right after we double click it, we see this is tailored for a PXI 7831R, and we don't want that, so we want to do for 7852R. So what we do is we go to our top level, we hit new, targets and devices, and we're gonna go ahead and add our FPGA to this project so that we can program that FPGA. So we get a list of devices here, and in this case we're using a desktop computer, which should appear on the real-time desktop. So we go ahead and add that, and so after we've added that, now you can see we have two computers in the project. We have my computer, the NI generic desktop, which is the external computer that's being used, or where the FPGA resides, as well as the other computer. So we're gonna go ahead to the NI generic computer and do the same thing. Right click, new, targets and devices, and we're gonna go ahead and add the FPGA. So we FPGA target, and if everything is set up correctly, it should show up. So it'll detecting the device, and there it is. 7852R PCIe. So we're gonna go ahead and click that, hit OK, and we've successfully added the 7852R FPGA to our project. So now we're gonna tailor it for whatever we need, and I'm just gonna show an example of that. Remember, this first part is the programming of the FPGA. So we can see here the PXI file has a bunch of connector folders there, 0, 1, 2, and it has this VI here, SIT-IO, which we need to have down here because that's the VI, or the file we need to program. So the first thing we want to do is right click, new, FPGA-IO, and what we're going to do here is, we can see this window here that says available resources. What we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and have all the connectors that we want to use for this FPGA that we just added. So we're gonna go ahead and add, this is sort of protocol thing, add that small connector RTS-IO, and you'll see why we chose that later. So then we go to connector 0, and here we can see we have the analog inputs, analog outputs, as well as digital inputs and outputs. For digital, they're not separated into outputs or inputs, they're just bidirectional. So we're gonna go ahead and select, let's say, 4 analog inputs here, and we're just gonna transfer them. So what we're just doing is transfer them to our project, so they're gonna be available. And we're also gonna go with 2 analog outputs, and for this application we're gonna go with 9 DIOs. I like to call them DIOs, digital input outputs. And again, what we're doing is assigning them, and so that they show up in our project, and we can actually do things with these connectors. Assign them to hardware, to software, so we can monitor variables and things like that. So now that we've added them, hit OK, and we can see them actually show up pretty much in the same way that they did on the PXI file. So the next step we're going to do is we're going to take this SITIOVI, and we need to transfer it to our project, because I said this is the file we're going to modify to program the FPGA. So what we're going to do is going to drag it down until we have it, and we put it on top of the FPGA target that we want, and we can see how we successfully transferred it. So we double click it and open it, and we can see this nice layout. Keep in mind that initially when you open it, this is tailored for the PXI, because this whole project is tailored for the PXI 7831. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually go and adapt it. We go to Window, Block, Show Block Diagram, and then we can make changes. We can see this broken arrow here. Signifies that the program cannot run because it has a bunch of errors. And you can see these red X's in these areas right here where the connectors are. You can see these connectors that don't have a red X, and then there's the other ones that do have. That's because those were the connectors that we actually chose. Okay? And then there's this trig 0 connector, which is sort of like a configuration file. Don't pay too much mind to that. We're just going to change this and adapt it. It's a pretty straightforward process. So what we're going to do is we're going to erase all of these connectors, in this case the variables that have these red X's. Essentially the way this works is this loop where I'm actually erasing things, that's where I have my variables coming from the connectors. So say we're just going to shrink this, and there we have it. Now I have it adapted for 4 analog inputs, and we do the same thing for the rest of the program, and we should end up with something like this, you know, erasing all the red X's and all that sort of stuff. We still have a red X in this trig 0 part, so we're gonna go to FPGA, select FPGA IO, RTSI, and we select that configuration connector that I was speaking about that we needed there. You can see how the red X went away, and we need to do this at both sides. This is pretty straightforward, so don't worry too much about how it's done. Just follow what I'm doing here, and you can see how the red X disappeared. Alright, so then we need to move on to the digital I/O. As you can see, the arrow is still broken, and when we come down, we actually see these small modules. They're just additional time loops so that the PWMs can run at different frequencies than the main loop, which is where we were before. And you can see here how we have all these connectors from 0 to 8, I believe, that don't have red X's, but then this one, the 12, the 13th, they have red X's, and it's because those ones I did not include in the 7852R FPGA. So we're gonna go ahead and erase all of those timed loops that have red X's, because that signifies that those connectors, I'm not using them. And you can see I'm left with, you know, just the basic for PWM. We're gonna modify this a bit later, but we can see how some red X's appear here, and like I said, in here is like the main loop. So these other time loops for PWM will have some variables. It depends on if it's an input or an output. If the PWM is an input, then it'll have a input variable or an output variable, which then that's what I'm just erasing here. So you should go ahead and erase everything that has a red X. And in this case, we see that our arrow is still broken. So we're gonna right click it, and you can just click on the error message, and we can see that our friend the red X appears again. So we go to, you know, repeat the same procedure, and there we go, the red X disappeared, and there we go, it disappeared. And you can see up here how the arrow turned white. That means it can run. We still have to modify it though. We still have to make some modifications. This is fine, these connectors are fine as they are, but for the PWM we're still gonna have to do some modifications, and that's gonna be included in the second part actually. But if you follow this straightforwardly, then you should be good to go. Yeah, so it's just a matter of modifying a little bit more, but now you can see it runs, so you can just go ahead and save that.